Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte arrives for a Libya conference in Palermo, Italy, Monday, November 12, 2018. Representatives of Libya's quarreling factions and of countries keen on stabilizing the North African nation started meetings in Sicily Monday, as Italy encourages a political settlement that could bolster the fight against Islamic militants and stop illegal migrants from crossing the Mediterranean to Europe's southern shores. AP photo, Antonio Colani, Milan. AP, Italy's populist government maintained its controversial 2.4% budget deficit in responding to EU demands for changes, but made tweaks during a late-night cabinet meeting Tuesday, including adding plans to sell off. Milan. AP, Italy's populist government maintained its controversial 2.4% budget deficit in responding to EU demands for changes, but made tweaks during a late-night cabinet meeting Tuesday, including adding plans to sell off some government real estate. Deputy Premier Luigi Di Maio told reporters in Rome that the government was not changing the ambitious social spending plans in its draft budget because it is our conviction that this maneuver is what the country needs to relaunch. The government has insisted that the spending is necessary to promote growth after years of austerity. A letter to Brussels being prepared by Economics Minister Giovanni Tria would outline plans to raise cash through the sale of secondary real estate, which Di Maio said would have an impact on Italy's stubbornly high public debt. He didn't specify what would be sold, but said it would not include the family jewels. Di Maio also suggested there would not be a safeguard clause that would trigger spending cuts in the event the deficit target was overshot, as Italian media had reported. He said the government was committed to staying within the 2.4% of GDP deficit target. We won't play sly foxes with the deficit, he said. But at the same time, we will maintain commitments to Italians made in the government contract. There will be all the cuts of waste, cuts of useless military spending, and there are the social measures to give back social rights to Italians. European officials have staunchly opposed the 2.4% deficit, which is more than 3 times the target of the previous government, and at a level that would keep Italy from reducing its debt load as it had promised. Italy's debt is currently around 130% of GDP, far above the EU limit of 60% and the second highest in Europe after Greece. The big concern is that doubts about Italy's debt could rekindle financial turmoil as well as questions about the future of the euro. The European Union rejected Italy's draft budget, saying it broke the rules, and gave the government until midnight Tuesday to submit a new version. The Italian government could face sanctions if it does not comply. The plan to sell real estate was unlikely to persuade Brussels, especially since the positive impact is not assured. Selling government properties was also a hallmark of the technical government of Mario Monti, which had forecast in 2011 raising as much as €30 billion by 2020 with the sale of government properties. The standoff has unsettled investors, who have sold off Italian debt in recent months, pushing up the country's borrowing rates. That could be dangerous because higher rates can hurt Italy's public finances, reinforcing investor concerns, in a vicious cycle. Such a scenario could require the government to make cuts during a moment of economic uncertainty. This could transform a slowdown into a recession, the International Monetary Fund said in its report, a regular review of the Italian economy released Tuesday. It recommends Italy tighten its public finances instead and predicts that the government will miss its own targets, with the deficit hitting an estimated 2.7% next year. The International Monetary Fund warned the Italian government that its plan to sharply increase spending carries substantial risks and would leave the country vulnerable to market turmoil. It urged Italy to put to rest any concern about public debt sustainability, which recently has resurfaced. Copyright 2018 The Associated Press. All rights reserved. This material may not be published, broadcast, written or redistributed.